Hey, Hound Dogs, I'm David Hankins.
I'm Paul Hankins.
I'm Trevor Hankins.
I'm Julia Cannon.
And I'm Rachel Wells.
And you're on the air with Power Squared. Today we're going to talk about The Sculptor by Scott McCloud, which was our book club choice, which was made by Rachel Wells. So, Rachel, tell us what attracted you to this book.
It's by Scott McCloud, who, if you're a comics girly like me, you recognize his name from understanding comics and making comics. There was a third one, wasn't there? Like, Analyze, something like that. But two very famous comic theory books in the field. Basically everyone at my sequential art program in school was required to read them. And I believe my husband, Dom, picked this up also as required reading for another class of his. And he loved it, and he encouraged me to read it, and I did. I first read it a long time ago, closer to when it came out, I believe in 2015. And it left an impression on me. We've kept it this whole time. Because this guy has been known this whole time as the comics theory guy. So we know he can talk the talk, but then you have a question of whether he can walk the walk.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, what did we all think about it?
I'm gonna say this might throughout reading it, I went from what was I gonna say this? I'm sorry. Let's just say this: I cried near the middle and towards the end.
Aww.
When I was actually reading, I'm like, oh no, because it was one of those stories where I kind of had a hunch of where it was going near the end, and I'm just like, oh no, they actually did it.
Yeah, that's one of the things that stuck with me all these years. It's really poignant. I
Yeah.
think is the correct word.
Like it makes you when I was reading it, it makes you uncomfy, but in a good way of especially with comics, you're always known oh, they're supposed to be fun and whimsical or whatever, but it's when I was reading it, especially with him going through his ups and downs, and I'm just like, damn.
Yeah.
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 So, you want to tell us a little bit what the book is about, so if people have not, don't give away the whole thing, but if somebody hasn't read it, they were like, well, what the hell is The Sculptor about?
That's right. So the Sculptor is about an artist in New York City named David Smith who is down on his luck. He once had success, but he kind of lost it based on his poor attitude, and he's finding it difficult to break in again. But then he's suddenly encountered by Death in the form of his great uncle Harry, and Death gives him a deal. He gets these magical sculptor powers that allows him to sculpt basically anything he wants. And in return, he dies in 200 days. And David takes the deal. And he's able to sculpt anything he could possibly desire. But then, in the middle of this 200-day period, he falls in love. So he has to contend with that.
Okay. Now, would you take such a deal?
That's a good question. That's a great question. Because this story, I don't know how it hits with non-artists, but because I'm an art girly, I've been an art girly my whole life, it just hits in a very particular way. And I remember there was a point in my life where maybe I would have taken the deal because art was everything to me. But then as you grow up, you start to get a wider, what's the word I'm looking for? You fall in love. Like David Smith in the story. Like you get a wider view on life and you get different priorities. So I think today as a 30-year-old, I would not take the deal.
Yeah.
As an artist, I kind of feel this. I think I kind of feel the same way. Yeah.
I feel like we've all whether you're an artist or not, we've all been through that point where it's there's something in us or a passion or whatever that we hold on to dear, we would sacrifice anything just to either get it right or just to continue doing it. So when I was reading it, it's some maybe you don't even have to be an artist to really understand. It's if you have a passion for something and you're you basically in that perspective in the very beginning, when you have nothing to lose. So it's it's like a fair
Yeah.
enough, like, yeah, I would understand in that point of time, like, you would, like, why one person would, like, make such a deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
It just sort of, I kind of feel like reading this that he kind of wastes the 200 days in some ways. He's not as he does a lot of stuff that's just odd, and then he gets falls in love, as you say, and doesn't really. He's not producing all the time, which is what you would hope if you had 200 days to make your mark. I kind of feel like he kind of
Yeah.
Well, he at the beginning of the story, he kind of it felt like he was wasting a good amount of his time to wait for like this big moment that like fell through.
like a show that's supposed to.
Yeah.
It was like he was
Well,
banking everything on that.
yeah. So, like, I was reading some comments about the book leading up to this show, and there was one person that commented, he can sculpt the most amazing things ever, and yet he can't become a successful artist in 2 days. That's so unrealistic. It's
Well, having
almost
the
like there's more. It's almost like there's more to being an artist than just being good at art. I think a lot
Yeah.
of David's pitfalls is his attitude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before the events of the story, he has this deal with this big patron. He basically has his life set for him, and then then he had an interview and like said some nasty things about the guy just because he wanted to tell the truth. He didn't care who he was talking about, and then the relationship soured. But the point is, there's more to art than just having technical skill. It's about charisma to a certain degree. It's about knowing certain people and taking advantage of opportunities when they land in your lap. And I think it's clear from the story that even though David is given this beautiful gift, he can't utilize it in the right way. Like, success doesn't just fall into your lap, unfortunately.
Right.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I think it was like also established like when, like, I don't want to say he was like playing victim all the time, but even his friends were just going like, listen, you had your fair share of points. The industry is like hecked. But also they had to call him out on his own BS too, going like, well, you were also in the wrong here too. You the hand that fed you.
Mm-hmm.
That's on you.
Yeah.
Like, you
Yeah.
were right. Like, you weren't entirely wrong, but you didn't have to be an ass about it.
He's his own worst enemy in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, that's the
With what I
truth.
said, sorry, with what I said earlier, I was like, it makes it's logical for the character, but as an observer,
Like Bravo.
as a reader, you still kind of feel like he's wasting some of his valuable time.
Right. Yeah. He's
And also with him as an artist, it's like in the very beginning when he was making like a plethora of like stuff, it's like although they may be like like they may be amazing to you, especially with like some of his like own personal stuff, like going like, oh, like the sculpture was this one time in middle school when so and so did this, or this time in high school. It's like, yeah, that's very personal to you, but also like I also understood his friend was going like, you can't publish all this, you can't put these in the show, dude. And then obviously them saying that it's like also a hit to your gut, but it's also like you kind of got a point. No one's really going to understand it there
Yeah.
too. So it's like it may be like, yeah, you can create anything you want, but also like it doesn't necessarily mean everybody's going to understand it. And
Yeah.
whether that's unfortunate or fortunate, that's like neither here nor there. But like, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
The book also makes me think about the different definitions of success, because David obviously makes he makes a bunch of stuff with the powers, and he makes some very personal works that reference his past, his childhood, and also his inner feelings. And yet he still can't manage to break into like success in the art scene. He can't make the gallery show or make the patrons notice him. But at the same time, for some people, that isn't necessarily what success has to be. Like, I guess for me personally, if I had these powers and I was able to make all these things, like, that would be at least one kind of success. Just making the thing, just showing up and doing it.
Right.
If someone notices, that's great, but I can't control whether they notice. I can't control whether I get the deal or the gallery show. So, and that's something you have to contend with a lot as an artist, is where does success start and end? Especially because, like I mentioned, you can't control, like, the employer, the agent, the decisions they make. So at some point you have to accept that.
It's like you can't control the stuff around you, but you can't control how you feel about it, or like how you react to it, or like, was it feel or react? The quote, like, I,
It could, well, you can't really control how you feel, but you can certainly control how you
yeah,
react.
okay, there you go. There's the one.
All right.
So like, obviously, with him crashing out every single time someone tells him like, this is not the like cool or something like that, that could have gone better, but obviously it didn't.
One thing I found interesting is that like he keeps getting like passed up for what's seemingly like dumb reasons. But what I found interesting is that later in the book he's also speaking in defense of another artist who got passed off that he actually liked.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
That's like the one time. That's like one of the few times I did agree with him, going like, okay, it's one thing if you got passed up because someone bested you. That's just showing that like someone like is better than you, or like they like you like, yeah. But it's another thing if it's just like, like other like favorites and stuff. It's like that was like the one time I did agree with him. Like, yeah, that wasn't cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really like the exploration of the art world in general, throughout the story, because you can tell it's something Scott McCloud himself has had to deal with throughout his life. Just dealing with the fact that it has these peculiarities and they're not always fair. In fact, many times it's completely unfair.
Yeah.
No. Okay.
I'll also mention, I know this, I'm aware of this was not the point of the story, but, why am I nervous saying this? As a manga reader, one thing I liked is that there was a point where it showed, David, using his sculpting powers in more creative ways outside of art. Yeah.
That was like that was
Yeah.
basically his phase where he basically just accepted like, this one person doesn't define if my stuff is good or not, and then just like, that's when he basically just kind of went. I don't want to say AWOL, but like, a lot of people saw his
Haywire?
work. Yeah, haywire. There we go.
Homeschool?
Yeah. What he do like in the middle of the story count as a crash out or not really?
I guess you could argue that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Like, I guess in like today's terms, would that be considered a crash out?
Probably.
Sure.
There was
A
a
crisis?
point. There was a point where he was just like, "Screw it." Yeah.
And another big strength of the story is the art, especially the portrayal of New York City,
Yeah.
like the shots
Yes.
of the buildings and the streets, like Marvel wishes. Let's be real here. And I also like the fact that it's monochrome, but it's like he chose a blue color, not instead of just like black and white.
Yeah.
It kind of adds it's simple, but it also adds a kind of liveliness to the story.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Else.
And one thing I didn't like about the story is it tends to rely on cliches, and there's argument as to whether that's intentional or not, but it's something I'm a little more aware of as an older person as opposed to when I was younger when I read this. Especially the character of Meg is basically like the picture of a manic pixie dream girl. And she almost starts to confront this issue herself. She says things like, I'm not an object. I'm a person, I have depth. But then it doesn't really go much farther than that, unfortunately. And then also, spoiler alert, at the end she dies.
Okay, thanks for ruining the book.
They rely on like the women in refrigerator trope, um, which is just disappointing a little bit. It was disappointing um, even when I read it the first time. And part of me wishes she could have lived on, maybe had the baby, and like we can just wonder what life would be like without David.
Yeah, she seemed like a real handful to deal with. From a guy's point of view, she was like, I'll say mercurial. I mean, you couldn't really figure her out, and then as soon as you thought you did, she would change, or she wouldn't want to be figured out, or whatever. I mean, it was not. If for somebody that has 200 days to live, that was not a good relationship to get into in some ways.
Yeah. It's like, I understand
Yeah.
the concept, like, yeah, you got 200 days to live, do what you will, but also, like, probably not.
But the thing about the Manic Pixie Dream Girl is that she might seem like a handful, but at the same time, she's also like the Manic Pixie Dream Girl is supposed to be an idealized version of a woman. Like she falls in love with the male lead without him really having to do much of anything.
Yeah,
And she doesn't really she doesn't like his drawbacks, but at the same time she doesn't really do much to push back against them.
Yeah, I just think she would be a real, you really would never know where you were with her in some ways. Because you think you're both come to some sort of mutual understanding, and nope, that's the exact opposite of what she's looking for.
Well, it doesn't know she is refusing to take her meds.
Yeah, well, that's another, I don't think that's an idealized version of a woman. She's on meds, but...
I think it's also just, like, one thing, not even just comic books, but I think just media in general, a lot of things, like, the whole thing with the whole Manic Pixie Dream Girl thing, it's like, a lot of things don't date very well, especially with, like, when the Sculptor was released, so that could also be a thing. It's kind of like the whole thing of, like, how... Yeah, like, it's kind of thing how, like, some stuff in, like Saturday Night Live, like, doesn't date well to, today kind of thing. So that can also be a part of, like, I don't want, like, part of just like when writing something, it's like try not to date your stuff.
Well, there's some ways that but some ways your attitude about something is sort of will date it in a way.
That's true.
Yeah, and it just frustrates me that like the story seems to want to make Meg into something more, but it ultimately doesn't take that step.
It's like her own. It's like her own issues or like whatever she was dealing with. She ended up having like a similar story to like how like basically the whole thing with meeting like death, and maybe she had her own deal. But it's like, yeah, I get it though.
Yeah.
Like I get the concept of like bringing the main character on like down to its lowest thing, but like I don't know. Like I'm kind of with you there, going like, yeah, near the ending, I'm just like, bro. I was expecting like maybe for her to have like another actual episode of going like, you freaking traitor or something, like valid crash out of like your loved one dying, but also, no.
Yeah, I almost wonder what the story would have been like if she didn't die, and let's say she went into a depressive period right before he died, and she was like, "I hate you. I'm never talking to you again," and then he dies, and it's just like
that was
be, like,
the break. That was supposed to be the break, and then the break. I feel like that's when they had that like break when he was about to basically sculpt his entire ass out, and then she came back because she was pregnant. I was like, no, God damn it!
But she'll live on forever as that sculptor at the very end.
Yeah,
That's true.
That's the silver lining.
Yeah.
That's true.
I mean, that's sort of the way art is. You sort of, I mean, that was a very,
Yeah.
something that will never have happened, but it'll be there until they probably tear it down because it's,
Oh no.
you don't have the permit to put it up or whatever. Serious can be.
Actually, on note on with sculpting. It's I did read the whole thing, but it's been a little bit. From what I remember of it, I think one thing that was with the sculpting power, I think one important thing to nail with the art would be like the rendering of different textures, and I think he managed to. I think he was able to do that.
Well, he also he had the ability. He didn't have to, sculpt.
Yeah.
He could just touch things and make them happen. I mean, that's a
He's
whole.
basically like the Avatar with art. That's the way I portrayed. That's the way I portrayed it. He was the Avatar with art.
Yeah.
I mean, like with the artwork of the comics, since the sculptures are made of different textures, I
Right.
think it'll be important to know how to render different textures.
Yes.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So yeah, you get. I mean, part of the one of the things you hear about with people, they say if you want to be a successful artist, is you have to be have talent, you have to have a good personality, and you have to be on time with your assignments. And
Yeah.
if you have two of those three, you can maybe make it. But he seems to have like
1.5.
yeah, he doesn't have two. So you can have all the talent in the world, and if you're an asshole, hey, no one's gonna pay attention. Or I guess in some cases people do, but eventually they figure out you're an asshole.
Yeah, there's certainly some asshole artists out there, but like they at the very least know how to pull the right strings. Like the characters of Ollie and Finn. Like Finn is obviously he's built up by the story as like not the best artist, but he's getting in with Ollie so that he gets more favor when it's time to choose which sculptors show up in the gallery. And David is frustrated by this because Finn is just using his best friend. But at the end, it's revealed that Ollie is aware of this and he's okay with it because he's also using Finn for his own purposes.
Well, they're in a homosexual relationship, aren't they? Yeah. So they're
Yes.
they're getting something. He's getting something out of it, even if he knows he's being taken advantage of. Yeah.
Yeah. Another interesting highlight of the art world.
Yeah.
You say those relationships go on there? Oh, no, I'm joking.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
I'm shocked to hear that. I'm joking.
Oh, dear Lord.
No, and I'm sure there's a lot of people using people. Yeah, that's probably very common. It's probably common
mean,
in every
There's,
Yeah.
artistic.
there's a lot of
endeavor.
discussion about how most fine art is money laundering. Like, those auctions where the pieces go for like millions upon millions of dollars, but they're both like, it's a classic modern art where it's like splatter on
Yeah.
a canvas, Jackson Pollock style.
Yeah.
And people are like, why do they want these pieces? Like, who cares about them? Money laundering.
Yeah, I honestly wouldn't be surprised. Yeah.
Well,
Or like a status symbol or something that's not really about the art.
yeah, people tell you if you want to collect art, it should speak to you. You shouldn't buy it because you think it's going to be worth something. But there are people that just buy so much. I mean, they're rich. They just buy stuff because it's a status symbol to have a Jackson Pollock, or it's a. Maybe there is. I'm not saying there's not money laundering going on, but because you're taking, you're putting into something that you're assigning the value of it.
Yeah.
This is worth $80 million.
They have like,
I'm just remembering. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say you have stuff like the banana duct tape to a wall.
I was thinking about that.
I was
Yeah,
like, really?
Yeah.
modern art can be very, when there's a museum in LA called Museum of Modern Art, and before that they had a permanent place. They were in a warehouse and they called it the temporary contemporary, and there were people that art was, he named this an atrium, which is what it was, but because he named it that's his art piece. And I'm like, really? I mean, that was like, okay, that's a little esoteric for me. Or somebody bought and they actually put them on some of these concepts that somebody had for an art piece. It wasn't actually ever, he bought it before it was actually ever done. And it was just the concept that he bought. And so they put on some of these, like, a room that looks like it goes on, it looks like it goes on forever kind of thing. And, which they pulled off. But I mean, people will buy just a concept of an art piece, not the piece itself, which I was like, okay, that's just a little, that's a whole different world for me. I don't.
Someone also literally managed to sell 3 blank canvases.
Yeah, because there's somebody that'll think that's my artistic expression. Oh, I had nothing to say or whatever 3 times.
I feel like the more we talk about this, it seems like a more like ridiculous version of stocks for some reason.
Kind of.
Well, but with stocks to a certain
honestly,
degree,
yeah.
But with stocks to a certain degree, if you think a company's worth something, people will buy into it, and that's the same idea with this piece of art is now worth $80 million. Wow, so you insure it for $80 million, and somebody wants to buy it, they got to pay you more than that.
Yeah, but also like if I was gonna pick, like, I'd rather buy like a Tesla stock than like 3 blank canvases.
I'm not buying Tesla stock right now, dude.
Either way, either way, I wouldn't do it. But if I had to at gunpoint, I'd rather pick the stock.
Some people do see art as an investment, though. Because,
no, like that's fine, and that's fine.
Shit generally increase in value.
Fine. Yeah, I mean, I can't afford to buy original art, but I did buy some serigraphs and stuff that I bought it for $650, and now it's worth $4 or $5.
Like if you buy like original art like for yourself, like that's total. I feel like that's a different story entirely. Like you do you, boo boo. But also like whenever I look at like modern art and like stuff like that, I'm just like, I mean, I guess, but also, really 3 canvases and it's like it's like a bajillion dollars.
Well, there was a piece that we went to the Museum of Modern, their Contemporary Museum, whatever it was. There was like 3 or 4. Looked like brooms kind of leaned up against the wall or something. That was an art piece. Like, okay. I can understand that, there's different ways of expressing things, but it also seems like you can almost get away with anything, like a banana taped to the wall. That's art,
Yeah.
As long as somebody thinks it is, it is, I guess.
This conversation makes me think of this book I had as required reading in I want to say it was an anthropology class. It's called 7 Days in the Art World by Sarah Thornton, and each day or chapter, so to speak, is the author exploring a different aspect of the art world. At one point, she goes to an art fair, I want to say in Milan. She goes to the studio of Takashi Murakami, who's the artist that does like those big, how do you describe it? They're like maximalist pieces. I'm sure you've seen their work, but she goes to an art auction, she goes to an art class, and it's just a very fascinating look at different aspects of like the art world, both on the artist side and the patron side and everything in between.
Yeah. It's a wide, wonderful world, I guess, or what you want to call it. So it's a thought-provoking book, isn't it?
I think so too. It's not perfect, but ultimately I recommend it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like it picks at the brain part of your brain that like kind of tries to push away stuff that's uncomfortable for you, but like it's one of those things like it's in a good way. It's more of like it's not like just messed up like horror like or just like angst like how you would normally read in any like form of fiction. It's more of like it actually gets you thinking.
Yeah.
Especially in an artistic way. It's like, is everything you're doing really worth the 200 days you signed your life for, or was there more to life you just couldn't see it?
Yeah. All right.
Then it's like, yeah.
So I guess we'd all recommend it. Especially if you're want to call yourself a creator, you need to know that there's a lot. I think that's a good kind of lesson in a way.
Yeah.
If you get an opportunity, don't blow it.
Yeah.
Learn to bite
If you're
your
an
tongue.
artist, it'll make you think.
Learn
If
to
you're
bite
not
your
an
tongue.
artist,
That's what I learned.
It might also make you think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So next up, what?
Something I was trying to say earlier, I wasn't entirely sure how clear I was. I was trying to say that Scott McCloud's artwork, he is able to he is able to depict different textures, like looking differently, and I think it. I also like how he was able to depict things like kind of fused together.
Yeah. Good point.
I agree.
All right. So would you recommend the book?
Yes.
Okay.
Since David's power involves sculpting, I think that would be an important thing to get right,
Yes,
and
you'd have
he
to be able to
does.
show texture.
Yeah.
Because that is what sculpture is in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So, if that's...
I will say the funniest part in the book I saw was when he was trying to explain the whole thing to Meg. It was just going like, when he like finally showed proof, like, yeah, this I've been telling you the truth the whole time. He's like, wait, you can actually do it? Like, you said you believed me. I was being supportive. Fair enough.
Yeah, I like that part.
I was like already feeling like crap, like during the book in a good way, and then I read that. I'm just like, oh my fucking god, I would pull that crap. I would pull that. I am her in this moment. I'm like, you know what? Fair. That is a valid response.
Yeah.
You would say you believe them. You would say you believe them just to show them support, and then when they actually do the thing, and it's like, oh my god, you were telling the truth.
That moment felt realistic.
It's like, you said you believed me. I was being supportive. It's like, that was the most realistic thing I've seen all day.
So anyway.
So, I guess it's Trevor's turn to pick a book.
Yes.
Hey.
And he
And what'd
has
you pick?
something.
Drum roll.
Okay, my suggestion is something I think I tried to offer up before. Is Usagi Yojimbo, which is it's an American comic by Stan Sakai. Due to a combination of price and availability, I chose Ice and Snow.
Okay.
Because which book is this? This is this is book 39.
So he's not very prolific, is what you're saying.
Well, it's written. It's Usagi Yojimbo has been around for like a long time, but Sakai purposely writes it in such a way you can jump in at just about any point and you still follow it.
Okay.
Oh, so it's like the Final Fantasy series where you can start at anything and it's fine.
Kinda.
Okay, and you've met Stan Sakai a few times.
Yes.
Oh, cool.
I chose
Comic-Con, baby, it's Comic-Con.
I chose this because it's this is like it says on the back it's $25. But I started with the IDW run, but right now it's a little bit like good luck with that. This is the inaugural main story of the Dogu run.
Okay.
And Dogu is
his own label under Dark Horse.
Okay.
Or it's his own comic label, and it has made another publishing deal with Dark Horse.
Oh, well, okay. That makes sense. We'll get your book in stores.
I wasn't trying to imply it was like a subsidiary of Dark Horse.
No, it's his own label that they're distributing.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll have that book club in sometime. June, maybe.
One day.
One day. Leave that wide open.
Soon.
All right, so
Alright, If you're looking for a silent fidget toy, you can use our affiliate code Martin Eli to save 10% off your purchase at getono.com. Listen to how silent it is.
And if you're watching this on
Island.
YouTube and you like this, leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more, and leave a comment below if you have any opinions of your own about Scott McCloud's The Sculptor.
All right. So until next time, I'm David Hankins.
I'm Paul Hankins.
I'm Trevor Hankins.
I'm Julia Cannon.
And I'm Rachel Wells.
And you've been on the air with Power Squared. Bye.
Bye.